The freedom to live.
Ooh.
What does that suggest to you?
Oh, my goodness. The freedom to live.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways you can answer that one.
It sounds like a good thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's something that we all want, right? The ability
certainly better than the opposite.
Yeah, the ability to let it all go and just, and live your life and enjoy your life. Yeah, without pressure, without okay. Do you have some sort of magic pill or some secret, mantra that you're going to share with us?
Well, apparently this is the final step of the hero's journey. I can't believe we're finally here.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and the freedom to live, I love the suggestion. Like the opposite of that is, those things that keep us from feeling as though we're truly alive or, being completely fulfilled.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people can identify with that feeling. I know I can.
Mm-hmm, me too.
But it's been several months, and of course we've had some interviews and some letters from the fans episodes between here and there. But our main structure, the hero's journey, is coming to a close in this conversation today, and I feel like it is something of an accomplishment.
I agree, and it's nice to know that that hero actually got somewhere.
Yeah.
that journey, I mean, maybe it's endless, but also, maybe there's a destination that it's like, okay,
right.
It's a good rest stop along the way, right?
Right, or there's a cycle to it, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and I also want to just express how delighted I am that we have people who have been following us in this discussion and have been a part of the conversation. We more and more have people saying things like that when we appear. Right? We had that fan who was reading back quotes recently in Orlando. That was very touching. Mm-hmm. And other fans just saying that they really appreciate it. And other people who haven't checked it out yet but think, oh, yeah, that's maybe something I'd like to listen to. So all of that is great. And don't worry, listeners, this doesn't mean it's the end of the Heart of the Cards podcast.
No.
No. You're not getting off that easy.
No, we have plenty to talk about.
Right. And it also doesn't mean this is the last time we're going to discuss the hero's journey. I think rather we have a nice foundation we can refer to now and then to help frame things.
I learned a lot. I mean, I got to say, I learned a lot from this. Yeah.
You weren't familiar with it.
I was
right?
not.
I had been exposed to it early on, but right. And I learned a lot too, even though I had some previous understanding of it. It's been a very rewarding conversation to have with you.
Yes, you as well.
So I guess without any further ado, maybe we should dig into what it is to have the freedom to live.
I love it. Let's get to it.
Welcome to the Heart of the Cards, a conversation about creativity, inspiration, and dealing with what we're dealt.
Hey, this is Dan Green.
And Eric Stuart.
And we are so delighted to have you with us in episode 19. The freedom to live.
Nice.
Yeah. And as we were just recapping at the top, this is the final step in the hero's journey. Yes, we didn't cover every step exactly along the way, although we did at least, say what we weren't exactly delving into. Mm-hmm. And thanks again for being a part of this conversation with us. Eric and I thought it would be helpful to share what Joseph Campbell wrote about this step in his own words, but also you understand that we interpret what the hero's journey is slightly differently in this conversation, as we are not actually mythic heroes.
Oh, man.
Mythological tales. I know it feels that way sometimes.
Oh, I'm going to have to take off this outfit.
Oh, you look great in a toga. You look great in a toga.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, so the hero is the champion of things becoming, not of things become, because he is. He does not mistake apparent changelessness in time for the permanence of being, nor is he fearful of the next moment or of the other thing as destroying the permanent with its change. Nothing retains its own form, but nature, the greater renewer, ever makes up forms from forms. Be sure that nothing perishes in the whole universe. It does but vary and renew its form. Thus, the next moment is permitted to come to pass. So, it's about somewhat being content with where you're at, right?
Yes.
You're not afraid of what the future holds. You're not regretting what you did before. And that has to do with being in the moment. I think we can all relate to what that experience is, right? What that goal is, at least.
Yeah.
And I know there are any number of times where I am fretting about the future, like there's something that I know I have to complete, right? Or a challenge that I don't feel I have the courage to face.
Yes.
And not only is that challenge going to work on me when I actually have to confront it, but it does occupy a lot of my mind space, right? Worrying about it as I anticipate. So I'm really kind of trapped down by it in more ways than one, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I observe this with one of my kids when they're not happy about when I have to go travel to a convention. They kind of dread when I'm gone.
Right.
And I always say, it's not going to be as bad as you think. It's never as bad as you anticipate, which is true. It never is. But, yeah. And also having things that you regret. Of course, we all have something that we regret.
Right.
Eric regrets getting to know me. And can I blame him? No. But I think it's also a healthy thing to address those things, but to the extent that you can let them go. You know?
Yes.
Which I'm not at that place. I still have regrets that drag me down. I have anticipations of things, anxieties about things, about the future. I have kids. I have their futures to worry about.
Of course. Well, yeah, you're responsible for more than yourself, which definitely adds a little bit of complications on top of complications in your situation.
Right. But I recognize this idea that is being addressed here. I understand. I can imagine what that state might be like.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at moments I've been able to be in the moment in that way. Not that I sustained it for very long, but yeah, it does provide a feeling of groundedness and reassurance. How about you? How do you respond to this?
Well, I think for me, there are definitely the stress factors that I've been working on throughout my life to get rid of. Worrying about the next paycheck, or worrying about people I care about, and trying to I have kids as well, and so that pressure. But recently, I have tried to really live for the day, live in the moment. Probably be some mix between my age and where I am on my journey, as well as the situation with my wife and sort of the question mark about her health and how long she's going to be around. That's really sort of made me look at what's important, and you think about, well, I've got to work really hard and save for that rainy day, and when I retire, I'm going to have this when I'm 70 years old, this is where I'm going to plant myself down, is that really what, like, is life supposed to be just getting to the end? Like, that doesn't seem like a very and we stress about the things that some things we can try to control, and then the things that we can't control, we still stress about.
Maybe even more so. Yeah.
I've started to mellow a little bit with my travel anxiety. I'm very claustrophobic. People who know me thought I was afraid of flying, but I'm not really afraid of flying. I'm afraid of being in a box with a bunch of other people, and I can't control my I want to get off. I want to stop here. I want to eat. I want to do. I've learned I can't control this, and if the plane is delayed and I miss a flight, this is part of the craziness of my life. So I'll figure it out. Rather than being so worked up and so uncomfortable, dreading. I still don't sleep well the night before travel. I still wake up way earlier. I still like to get to the airport. I'm using this as one instance, but a lot earlier than normal, just to control the uncontrollable, just in case there's traffic or the road is closed or something. But the other side of that is, so you mentioned the regret side. There are things that I have done that I think were maybe poor decisions. There are things that have happened that I think, my goodness, like, what were you thinking? Why would you have chosen that path instead of this path? But as I've gotten older, and I think hopefully wiser, I look at all of those situations as either the learning experience or what has shaped me into being a better person. You can't necessarily know what's good and wonderful if you haven't experienced what's not. So
Sure.
So if I have made a mistake, or if I've been at my wit's end, or if I've been financially broke or emotionally broken, coming back from that makes me value the good and the nice and the happy even more. But also, like, there are things that have happened where I say, that might not have been a great experience, but I wouldn't change it because of what I got from it. So maybe a part of this part of the conclusion of the hero's journey, I haven't reached what Joseph Campbell has described, but there are pieces of what he's describing that I have reached. And I think that it is important to love the past, the good and bad, just, what has created you. And then also look forward to the future of, even with what the challenges may be, but also enjoy that, that day, the day you're in, the moment you're in. Just recently, I did a very odd thing. I used to drive a lot to conventions, but now I really don't like to do that so much because I find that I want to sleep when I'm traveling, and I can't really do that when I'm driving. But recently, Lindsay and I...
Yeah, the last time you tried that, it did not work out.
No, it didn't. It didn't.
No.
We decided to do a road trip to a kind of a local 5 hours away event, and it was a road trip. It was like back in the old days when I was on tour with the band. And my wife was like, do I really want to get in the car and do that? You have a 5-hour drive and and what am I going to do when I'm there? It's not like it's the most exciting place to visit. And I said, you have your choice. You can do what you want. I said, I kind of look at this as an experience where we can really just spend time together. It's such a mellow event. We'll have time around my work, and also it's less pressure, the whole thing. We can stop and have dinner if we want. We're in control of the travel. And it was so much fun because we were in the car together. We got to really talk. We listened to music. We were singing along to songs we both knew. And afterwards, she said to me, I think that was my favorite convention. Now, everyone else out there who's had me as a guest, I didn't pick which one's my favorite. But she said, I think that was my favorite convention. She said, I really felt like you were in the moment. You were like, we had a great time together. It was, it was something you were able to focus on, the downtime, even though I was working. And it's because I wasn't stressed over the things that, okay, so there's...
Yeah, but typically,
normally, and I do think that there's a lot to be grateful for in every day that I wake up, whatever it may be. And I think people need to look at that as well. Even if you're working in a job that's tough, or even if you've got a lot of things that are challenges in the moment, we are given this short time here. And I feel like, one of the things that's so wonderful about living a life, and I don't just mean being alive, but living a life is, it's such a short time that I would like to make a difference. I would just like to make like, if I was not here, would you miss my presence? And I don't mean because I've done something amazing, but would it make a difference? And you see these eulogies and all of these words that people share when someone is no longer in the physical place with us, and that to me is probably the biggest motivation for me in the moment. Is I just want to move you, make you feel, make you laugh, have memories with you as a friend, so that you say, yeah, like my life was better because I had this person around. Like,
Right.
so that is
Which is really the most that most people can hope for, and I would say the best thing that anybody can hope for.
Mm-hmm.
Like some people will be in positions of greater influence, leaders and such, what have you, but without having someone in their lives that appreciates them for who they are as a human being.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I would just feel that was a failure, right, of a life.
Yeah.
Right, or a very unfulfilling one.
Yeah. And what about And what about you? Are you do you have?
Oh, you know what? I'm kind of shallow. I don't get any of this crap. Whatever. I just want to watch my.
I know. But you're an actor, so just choose a
I'll
character.
pretend like.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, long ago. So there's a lot to be said about being in the moment, and this is something that is literally a term used when learning acting. And the way it applies to that is when actors aren't living in the moment, you can almost, as the audience member, you can almost see them running through the script in their mind.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they're hitting all the marks, and maybe they're performing what looks like an emotion, that would be the correct response to whatever's going on in the story. And they got the blocking down, and they have all the moves, and all of that should feel like a performance, but it doesn't. Because their attention is somewhere else. Just like Lindsay was saying with you in this road trip convention, your presence was there, not on what may go wrong, what you hope goes right, right? Or the next thing to be concerned about. Am I going to get picked up? Right, at the airport, or whatever. I'm just guessing.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right.
But is my reservation cool at the hotel?
Yes.
Right. These are these little things that really take us out of being where we actually are.
Mm-hmm.
And why have a life if you're not going to be in it?
Yeah.
So I really am grateful that sense of being in the moment was a part of something introduced to my younger self early on. And you can feel those moments as an actor on stage. You can tell when you're, being in your head is a perfectly suitable term, and as opposed to being in the moment. And when you're in the moment, everything is effortless. When you're in the moment, it's more fun is a perhaps shallow word, but fulfilling, it's a much more complete, it's a much more organic, it's a much more alive experience. And you can tell that you're connecting to the audience in a way that they connect with you, not because you're more talented than you were the day before, not because you're more beautiful, but because you're there. You're tangible. And people who see live theater performances will understand exactly what that feels like when the performer is really there, owning that space on stage. Not to say that we don't get it in some films and whatnot, of course. It just has a very specific, palpable feeling.
The parallel that you're talking about of being on stage and following the script and how people do that in life. They have this.
Yeah, they have
this format that they need to follow. That's so true. I think that's a very clever way to put that. That's so true, because if you are just following some scripted way to live your life, that's not really living. You're not
right, and you very often create the script. You're the one creating the script.
Yeah.
So often. And I think people do that out of a sense of security, knowing what to anticipate. I think there are a lot of people who are terrified by the idea of living in the moment. Right?
But who writes that script?
Well, I think people write their own scripts to a degree.
Right.
And you could say society writes, a script in terms of, well, at this stage in your life, you should be doing this sort of a thing.
That's what I'm getting at. Like,
right.
I think that
these societal obligations, sure. Yeah. Right. And if you're simply running off of those, expectations, which is not to say that you shouldn't obey laws or,
Right.
It's not to say that all of that's off base.
Well,
but if that's all
Eric and Dan told me to the red light doesn't mean anything.
Right. Screw societal expectations. So no, but if that's all you're doing, you're not alive, right?
Sure.
But I think also write your own scripts in the sense that you take these expectations and then you self-impose them, right? Again, which is not to say that, like, if you got an idea for a goal that ended up being fulfilling, that just means that you're borrowing something from what society's asking you to do. No, that's not what I'm saying.
Right.
But having that presence in your own life is essential, and not only to acting a scene better than not doing that, but just actually being alive. And there's a long stretch of time where in my early adulthood, I guess I shouldn't say that it's a thing that's past because I still fall into it, but I was very concerned about these things that were supposed to be happening particularly when I was in my 30s, because it took my wife and I so long to actually get pregnant, right? We had several years of that thing that was supposed to happen not happening, and then all the things that we had to do to move that forward.
Right.
Which isn't to say that there was never a time or moments in the course of a day where we were present with each other and in the moment, but that was certainly harder to get at with all of these other things as kind of like a quagmire right around that.
Right.
And just focusing on that struggle for the both of us, in terms of regretting the past, one of the things that came up even earlier was should we have started to try earlier, right? It was revealed that really wasn't the issue. But you begin, having those kinds of what ifs,
right, and second guessing,
right.
All of this.
That second guessing, and which is not the same as the what if life that you've brought up, which a phrase I still love. But no, it's more of a matter of you are pursuing that thing, that you are trying for, right? But then it's like it's not working out. So what could I have done? And yeah, but that have done part is so important to understand. It's not a place to live. It's a place, as you said, to learn from, but to go forward. So,
and some of those things are incredibly heavy and incredibly upsetting, incredibly tragic, as we both know.
Right.
But yeah, you can't keep second guessing decisions, and you can't do that because you cannot. You can't change what you did. You can change what you'll do.
Right. And being informed by something that you regret is different than being stuck in the past.
Yes. And I know that we're both guilty of holding on to some of that stuff.
To this day, yes. There are things I think of and I'm like,
yeah.
Why did I say that thing at that moment? Or why didn't I do this instead?
Well, you just to backtrack a second when you were talking about making our own sort of script, writing our own script and coming up with our own plan. I think that if somebody who has at least listened to a couple of our podcasts or knew us well, looked at the two of us and looked at our life story so far, neither one of us has followed what society has scripted.
Right, or even we've thrown out our scripts here and there, the ones that we've made for ourselves.
Yeah, I mean,
I think what this idea is getting at is that you don't have a script.
Yeah, and you can still move along. You can still find your happiness and your creativity, and you can still find your people that you want to spend time with and that you want to share experiences.
And you're not ambivalent. You still care about things. You still want things. Right.
But the order in which you and I have done our things, the different paths we've taken, none of, at least from my perspective on this, none of all of that is what I was told to do by what the norm was. Not to be irresponsible, but just also things that were, I'm just going to do this the way that I'll do it, and hopefully this makes sense. Rather than, you can also learn from other people's mistakes and examples, but there's really no better litmus test than yourself.
For sure, for sure. There's another provocative part to this, which you actually kind of reflected on somewhat briefly or just, tangentially, but which is being free from the fear of death.
Mm-hmm.
So looking at how most people, that's something, of course, they don't want it to happen in their lives to people that they care about it. They don't want it to happen in their own lives,
Right.
At least for, a very long time. And I can understand how, and I'm not claiming to have achieved this state as a hero would, but I can understand how if you can disarm your anxieties about that it also helps to make you not only more present, as we were just talking about before, not worrying about when it's going to happen or how it's going to happen or so forth. But also, in addition to being more present, I think it allows you to absorb more of its wonder and its beauty. And like you also said, like when you wake up, there's a lot to be grateful for, right? You're still a part of it.
Yep.
And that itself is a blessing. I also had this interchange in Orlando. It was with Brian, who was working the table with me, and who I don't know very well, but I really like the guy. And I said something about how it's so silly that people are somewhat judgmental or opinionated about age. And I find this more often with people who are younger than I, and of which there is a growing amount. But it just seems so strange to me that we should feel a sense of shame for surviving.
Oh, right. Oh, I agree.
Like older people are cool.
Yeah.
Because
they're still around.
Right. I get they're not as, good looking from a certain point of view as you might want, or they're not as capable or strong as they might have been. But that's not an option.
Yeah.
It's either get old or get gone,
Right.
And yeah.
That's interesting
So-
that you that struck you, because it's so true. I mean, I'm dealing with both the question mark of my wife's situation with her cancer,
Of course.
and
Of
my
course.
stepfather's in his 90s and not very well, and I'm dealing with
Right.
that sort of completion of
And
his
the
journey.
90s is an incredibly long-lived life.
Yes, and so there are two sides of that question of when and how and whatever. But the age thing, I just to pick up on what you just said. So friends of mine were visiting my parents when we were up in New York, and my friend asked my stepfather Bernie, "So what did you do for a living?" And Bernie said, "Well, I worked in some television stuff, and I did some things for some political stuff back in the day." And that was like his answer. And I said, "Hold on a second. You also were in charge of all of the space program landings for CBS. You filmed all of those recoveries. You worked with John Kennedy when you say you did television for politics. It's like, oh right, that's true too. And you did some singing in a club. You were doing like folk singing, and he's like, oh right, yeah, I did do. And I started to like recap his and I'm like, you've been around for a while. You've done a lot of stuff. And he also used to produce medical documentaries to teach doctors how to do operations.
Interesting.
And so I'm going through this whole list, and my friend Chip, who had asked the question, is going, wow. And Bernie's going, oh, yeah, that's right. I did that too. Oh, yeah, and I did that too. And it's like, yeah, if you've been around that long and you've had an incredible life story, there should be no ageism. You should almost be like, honored for like, you've lived.
So many other cultures do exactly that.
You've lived 5 lives, at least.
Right.
So,
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, I have a problem with, and also even just the way we worry about how we look, how we age. Especially
It's a little concerning.
Yeah,
How,
I celebrate that. I think I much rather see, an older woman with wrinkles than an older woman with so much Botox she looks like she's like a Barbie doll. Like, I find that much more beautiful. I mean, I might be in the lower percentage of that, but people that think that way. But the way that we put this pressure on, men and women, whatever. Older men seem to be like, accepted, and we're gonna put you. Now you're a character actor. We're gonna put you in these roles. It's all great. Older woman, not so much. It's like, guys.
Well, that's a whole. We should have a whole other podcast episode about that. But yeah, it is strange and I mean, it's understandable to on a very superficial level, but I think there are other unhealthy things involved with that, and you can't hold on to the past. And rejecting aging, I think, is also unhealthy, and it's a bit childish. In my opinion, I could probably find a better word than childish, but it's certainly. I mean, it's literally not mature. It's kind of against the whole mature idea,
right?
And I think while it's understandable, it's not a great trend. Also, it's delusional to a degree. It's really divorcing you from reality to an extent. And I observe also that we have these refined processes to mask the appearance of aging. We also have these other things which literally sustain your health longer. Now that makes a lot more sense to me, right, than the cosmetic stuff.
Yes.
But even so, like I think there might be some people who are grasping onto that as the elixir of life. That they will therefore live forever. And yes, be as healthy as you possibly can for as long as you can. Yes. But also, beware. Are you really is that the fear of death chasing you in a way that is potentially something that is keeping you from addressing the reality of life.
Right.
And understanding that it all comes to an end is a motivator. That's part of understanding that time is precious, that this is a precious experience. And there, in my healthiest relationships to that, I'm attacking my day with a non-fearful sense of this time is precious. And making the most of it.
Right.
So, yeah.
No, awesome.
But maybe we should call this part one of this conversation.
Yeah.
But we will be addressing this freedom to live in part 2 of episode 19 for next week. At the end of that episode, we'll talk about what's next for Andromeda Productions and the Heart of the Cards and all of what we're looking forward to.
Can't wait.
All right, great. Well, thank you for everyone who has been listening to our conversation about creativity, inspiration, and dealing with what you're dealt. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And also Patreon is a helpful means of support for us. But most of all, cherish your moments. And we cherish that you have spent your moments with us today. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Heart of the Cards with Dan Green and Eric Stuart. We hope this conversation in some way spoke to you. Whatever your journey, we look forward to crossing paths again in the next episode. This is Veronica Taylor, and on behalf of Andromeda Productions, we wish you well.
Andromeda, always a sound choice.